Welcome back. MTG Joe here. Today we're going to go over our starting point for the new set, Lost Caverns of Ixalan. I'll be participating in the early access event thanks to Wizards on Thursday. And we're going to be putting together some deck lists to try out for the streamer event, this best of one, the event. Sorry for the big thunder. We are having a huge thunderstorm here. And I wanted to start off with dinosaurs. As a child, I wanted to become an archaeologist because Jurassic Park came out. My favorite basketball team is the Toronto Raptors, so let's definitely start off with dinosaurs. We got a lot of cool tools that it's almost like the block constructed tribe of the set, where we had like soldiers, we had the toxic, kind of a self-contained, that we have some offsetting creatures from the old set. And we're going to start off, this is a Gruul list. Again, day one, things are going to change. I want to try out cards, the numbers might vary, but we'll have a gameplay video up as well after Thursday. So we're starting off Ixalan's Lore Keeper. I'm going to screw up so many of these names. It's basically just a one mana dork. Adds any color, so does color fixing for our dinosaurs. Helps us get a head-on curve. So we have that as well as the Intrepid Paleontologist. 2 mana 2/2 that adds a mana of any color. So we have 8 mana accelerants. The Paleontologist is actually interesting as well because it gives us a mana sink. So it's got kind of built-in graveyard hate. But if you target your own creatures in the graveyard, you can cast dinosaurs from exile with the Intrepid Paleontologist. And that is kind of good in a way too, because it just says from exile. If you cast a spell this way. So dinosaur creatures from among cards you exiled. So it doesn't work with like Farewell, for example, or Sunfall. That was one thing I want to see. And I want to try out when we're actually in the games. I'm not actually sure on this point if each instance of the Paleontologist. So say you have a Paleontologist that exiles one of the creatures from the graveyard. I don't know if it's kind of sourced to that Paleontologist or as long as they're in exile from a card Intrepid Paleontologist. I think it's the first version, but we're going to try it out in the set as well. Now, going to the dinosaurs themselves. We have Belligerent Yearling, 2 mana 3/2 trample, great stats on its own. And then whenever another dinosaur enters the battlefield under your control, it gets a power. You basically could transform its base power to whatever that creature's attack is. So we have like a 3 mana 6/6 we'll get to. So this, you can go a curve 2 mana into the 3 mana 6/6, and then this becomes a 6/2 trample for 2 mana. Really good damage output. We then go to Itzgwynth, Firstborn of Gishath, 2 mana 2/3 haste. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2. When you do, target dinosaur you control deals damage equal to its power to another target creature. So we're playing 3 of these. Normally with these types of legendary effects, I'd probably play 2. But I might actually even go up to 4. It's basically removal strapped to a creature. And the big thing here is it's deal damage as opposed to fight. So you can have your creature deal damage to like a Shieldred without dying from the death touch. So that's something I want to see out how this plays out in practice in terms of, it's almost like a kicker cost to see how it plays out, and we may go up more copies of it. Moving on, we got Pugnacious Hammerskull. This is a 3 mana, and it gives us a 6/6. So whenever it attacks while you don't control another dinosaur, you put a stun counter. We got a lot of dinosaurs in the deck, so this is a way that we can just consistently have a 6/6. Doesn't have built-in evasion, but a 6/6 on as early as turn 2, really, with the 1 mana accelerant is a pretty big clock. A lot of the removal, cut down, stuff like that won't really address it in that same manner. And then, like I said, this curves really nicely with the Yearling, where you cast this on turn 2, this on turn 3, boom, power on the board. This Scytheclaw Raptor, I think, is a really cool and interesting card that I'm probably going to slot into some numbers in mono red as well. But 3 mana, 4/3, good stats on its own. Whenever a player casts a spell, if it's not their turn, the Raptor deals 4 damage to them. Now, notably, this is a player, not an opponent. So if you do it, you also lose life. But if you're just playing out creatures, if your opponent's holding up removal, it kind of forces them, like regardless, to take damage. So even if it doesn't necessarily attack, 4 damage is a lot for them to play something at instant speed. If they're holding up like Wandering Emperor or something like that, you get them that way as well. Then we got Rampaging Raptor, a card from the older set. But we don't have any battles in the deck. Just a trample haste 4/4 that can be a mana sink and then also redirect damage. I think is reasonable. We want to have an aggressively slanted dinosaur deck. We're not playing up to Tallies or anything like that. I think just lower curve, be an aggressive deck, and kind of get them that way there. This is also nice because we have like mana sinks, like the Paleontologist, the Rampaging Raptor, and the Ishquinth, just as ways to kind of, if we do Flood, to use our mana. This is the card I'm most curious to see how it plays out in practice. It's got a lot of great text on it, but does it translate in the game? So 5 mana, 5/5, flying first strike. Super reasonable on its own. We got a Dinosaur Dragon. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play a land this turn. Then basically, if you exile the land this way, you create a dinosaur token. If you exiled a non-land, you get to create a treasure token. So it gives you just ways to ramp, gives you card advantage. Now the thing is, doesn't impact the board turn, it comes down. You have to go through an entire turn cycle and then go to your upkeep to get the value. This is where I want to see how it plays out. The biggest kind of shortcoming with this deck right now is we don't have a card advantage engine. This is something where maybe in like Pioneer or Explorer, Historic, Collected Company, and lower your curve. Because there's a lot of decent, like you can play like these 3-drops. There's Rotting Regisaurs in those formats as well. But interested to see, is this being our card advantage engine, how it plays out. And then lastly, we have Trumpeting Carnosaur. So this is, on its base stats, 6 mana, 7/6 trample, reasonable attacking body. It's kind of that big dumb dinosaur for 6, but this has got a lot of utility within it. At the very, like, the floor on this is basically discard it. It deals 3 damage to a creature. So it's kind of a bad lightning strike when you need removal early. It enters the battlefield. You also get to discover. So not only are you getting a 6 mana, 7/6 trample, it will let you cast another spell from your library. So it's kind of fixed cascade. So basically cast any of these cards as they flip over. The big high roll is obviously something like Boneyard Dracosaur or like your Rampaging Raptors kind of mixed into there. So this is another card that's just got a lot of utility. While it's a 6-drop later in the game, when you need it to fill the curve earlier, it's just a removal spell. So we have basically 7 pieces of removal in the deck without actually playing targeted removal spell. So lets us be aggressive while also have interaction along the way. We have Besejus, we have the Cavern of Souls, naming Dinosaur. So notably, we do have some human druids. We have the Lore Keeper and the Paleontologist. So those are cards that we'll potentially name human in a pinch on turn 1. But then just a lot of ways with the rest of your lands, have a lot of duels. And the card that I'm also interested to try out is this Restless Ridgeline. So the completion of the creature land cycle is here. We only have 1/1-drop, so tap land on turn 1 isn't the end of the world. It becomes a 3/4 green dinosaur, all text that we're interested in, and when it attacks, another target attacking creature gets a bonus, and that creature untaps. So we have a lot of things with trample, giving it more power, super reasonable in that regard. So it's kind of how I'm approaching it day 1. Will this be the exact 60 card special? I don't know. We're going to try out the cards, see how they play out. But this is definitely something I'm interested to see how this shell. It might be even something like a couple cards I was considering, the Green God as another way with, like if the Boneyard Dracosaur doesn't do great or some of these other cards, the Green God lets you put cards into play. So that's something I'm interested in. Even just potentially exploring, like we have a lot of good red cards that like a mono red dinosaur aggro burn shell might be something that's interesting. You get cleaner mana. You can go more fight spells. There's a lot of ways to kind of consider, but I think I'm just going like type dinosaur, kind of go from there. There is a version that I can see potentially going a little bit larger on the curve using like the more mana ramp. You have like the 3 mana dino that plays in the ramp decks. Clearing my mind of what the card is right now. But you could go that, you can go Atali. I just think at that point, you're basically playing a worse ramp deck. Whereas like if you're looking at the domain ramp deck, a lot of them have moved off Atali. Atrax is just better. And then you don't get Leyline Binding, you don't get Archangel, you don't get Sunfall. So it's like kind of a mix of like where you want to attack the format. I think being more aggressive is the correct line with the dinosaur deck. But even in like I'm going to try out a collected company version. We have Ferocidon. We have a bunch of cool cards that you can hit off of the collected companies as well in those more eternal formats. That's it for today. Let me know what decks or cards you're most interested in. If you have any cool deck lists that you want to see featured, drop a link in the video. I'll try to play as many community decks as I can as well to show off some of the new cards. Some ideas I have is like the new 2-mana 8/8 Dimir one with like on Nixless or fight rigging you could do. There's probably some sack style decks in there mixed as well. A lot of cool stuff from this set that we're going to explore together. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one. Stay safe out there.